Hi, it's Neil Walters of neilsvideos.com, and today I want to talk about staking on DIVI, D-I-V-I, that's a cryptocurrency, and I run a master node on DIVI, and recently a friend of mine was thinking about staking using some other coins, and I said, well, you should check it out about staking on DIVI. So I tried to find some basic information for him, and I'm finding that the information is kind of hard to get to. So let me show you a couple of things. If you just go to YouTube and search how to stake Divi, this is a good video from it's called The Voice, which is actually one of the support guys that we're going to mention in a minute. And it tells you how to get your wallet set up to be able to stake, but it doesn't tell you how to stake. And now these other videos might be a little confusing. Like this one says how to stake Divi quickly and easily, but it's using a service called My Container. And as he points out later, I call it a custodial service. That's where you basically give your Divi to someone else and let them stake it for you. And there's the famous rule that if you don't own the keys, you don't own the coin, right? So you don't want to give your coins to someone else to stake. This one I don't think I saw, so I may come back and check it. And actually, if I scroll down further, you actually see my video on how to set up a DIVI Master Node. So I'm glad it's popular, but it's not about staking. So we need some more videos here on staking. So this is going to be part one. Hopefully I'll do a part two later where I'll actually do staking. But right now I just want to give you the concept of staking on Divi and how it works and what are some of the ins and outs of it. Okay, so now I'm in Telegram. If you're going to be working with cryptos a lot and you haven't already used Telegram, you need to probably get that. You can either run on your phone or your desktop, and there's also a web interface, but I think the desktop and the phone interfaces are a little better. And this is what it looks like. You basically have all these different groups you could be a part of, and some of them are free to join and some of them are paid subscriptions. Like over here, I have my Master Traders group, which I have some other videos on my website about that, where we have a trading group that meets basically almost an hour every morning. And some of the leaders are basically from a different part of the world. So I watch it on recording when I get up in the morning. And look up one of my crypto coaches there on my video, and you can learn more about that. But right here, I want to search for Divi. Now, as with a lot of social media these days, you have to be very careful where you go and make sure you're in the right group. So like the best way to find this is probably to go to the Divi site and find this group, because what people will do, they'll pretend to be somebody else, right? Someone can create a group called Divi Support. Well, there's already one called Divi Support, probably like here, but there's a Divi Support and a Divi Official. And people could actually create another Divi channel, and what they might try to do is get you to give them your secret keys and all that. So hopefully if you're in crypto by now, you know never give out your keys or your passwords or your seed words or anything like that. And really you shouldn't even be talking to anybody unless you're sure they're really in the right group. So this is the official group for Divi, and I'm not really sure why they have this one and a support group. But I went in here and there's a really nice guy. He goes by The Voice, is his user handle name. And he answered my questions. And not only did he answer them in text, he actually gave me an audio. It's actually nice that he gave me the audio, but sometimes, text is good too. But it's better like if he just talks off the top of his head, then he says what he really wants. Because when you have to type it down into words, the words don't always flow as good. And it's a lot of keystrokes and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is basically just play you, or I'll show you what I ask and I'll show you what he answered, but some of his answers I'm going to have to play you and make them part of this video, okay? My questions are on March 31st, about 3-something p.m. Central Time. Okay, so one thing I found when I was just playing with this, they actually have little bots in here. And if you just type a slash at the bottom, it will tell you what the different bot things are. Like right here, if I just type slash, you can see there's all kinds of different bots. And some of them run in this forum and some of them only run in the other forum. But that's not the purpose of this lesson. But I typed in here something that gave me the Divi economy statistics. Here's a close-up of that image. At the top half of the screen, you can see the different types of master nodes that are available, and for example how many divis you need to run that node. So you need 100,000 copper nodes, If the price is under 7 cents per DIVI, that node will cost you right now about $6,700, or it'd be exactly 7,000 if the price was 7 cents. Now I got mine back when DIVI was under a penny, or about a penny. Then you can see how many people, or not necessarily different people, but how many nodes there are for each category. So it could be the same person owns 2 or 3 of these nodes. And you can see that a diamond node would take 10 million DIVI, which is about $673,000 right now. This is the estimated rate of return for each one. And you can see that each node going up pays about 1% more than the previous one. So by having a silver node, you make 1% more than a guy with a copper node, but they're all still pretty close. This is what your monthly revenue would be right now, given today's current prices. So again, if you have a copper node, you could expect to make $110 a month on your $6,700 that you invest. And of course, if you divide that out 12 months of a year, it should hopefully give you that number right there. And there's a cost of $10 a month for your master node for a copper and a silver, and it's kind of small there, but you can actually see it's $15 a month for the higher level nodes. They take more resources, I guess. Then down here, this is what we're really interested in. It's talking about how many people stake and what are the rewards. So here it says the average rate of return, if 100% of the people who can stake do stake, then you'd be making 21% return on investment. I always thought the staking rewards would be smaller, but you can see they're actually higher than the running the nodes themselves. So it seems kind of, that was like news to me as I created this video. It seems like to me running a master node would pay more than staking, because when you're running a master node, you're sort of staking at the same time. So maybe I'll come back and ask him a question on that later. And anyway, the fewer people that stake, actually that increases the reward. So think of it as like the number of miners. You're kind of like doing mining. It's not exactly mining. You don't need a special chipset or a special computer to do this. Later he talks about a system they use, and it's kind of like a lottery. Let's say they pick a number every 10 minutes or every hour, whatever it is. They pick one of these, not one of these people, but one of these stakers, and they go and say, is the staker there? And if so, he can earn his reward. If he's not there, he loses that reward, and it would go on to the next person. So this will be discussed and more in the audios we'll hear in a few minutes.
No, I just answered your question. There's no way to know the percent of staking, because staking is purely private and volunteer, and there's no broadcast or tie-in to the amounts that are staking. You only know when you stake, or you can only see a stake when it happens. And then you can extrapolate from that data and get a potential idea of the amount. And like I just said up above, some estimates are showing that potentially 80% of the coins that are available, spendable, that only about 80% of them are staking. So it's not necessarily 100%. The bot in support assumes that all of the spendable are also staking. So the bot in the support channel would be the most conservative number that you would get. But right now, yes, it is returning a little bit more. It's just a lot more work for some people. So,
okay, so I replied back and said, thanks for the details. The last part, staking, is a lot more work than a master node. I said, is that what you meant? Is all this on a wiki or blog somewhere? Which I think he never answered that one. I run master nodes, but a friend was asking about staking. And so here's his reply to that.
Well, no, I'm talking about personal empirical experience. For the average person, you know, it's not a lot of work. How about this? It's what I would call as helicopter parenting. You're computer literate. So you understand what it is to run a server. You understand what it is to have uptime. You understand what it is to have static, consistent connectivity. You understand what it would mean to be optimized. So, you know, your uptime from updates is limited. Staking for the average person is an increase in awareness that they have to make sure that they're, not using junky Wi-Fi, but that they're using Ethernet. Or if they're using Wi-Fi, then they have to spend some time thinking about where they're placing their router so it has line of sight to the PC. You want to make sure it doesn't roam. You want to make sure, you got to do, these are basic things that we would talk about, things that I've learned over, the years of doing it. But doing the updates and all those kinds of things, you want to make sure you manage them. So for Windows PCs, it's a pain in the butt. They're wanting to do updates every week. And then you have a major update once a month. And then users who are staking, when this happens, it hard shuts down everything. And when you have a peer-to-peer application that is trying to always consistently stay connected, that process gets broken, usually corrupts some data, and then it requires the user to resync again. So from a user experience perspective, if you're not prepared for that, it sucks. It just plain stinks. And then you're into support and trying to get it resynced again. So the answer is nothing is passive. Masternodes aren't passive. Staking is certainly a lot more work than masternodes. It's very, very rewarding. But for a person like you, and if your friend was, used to working on computers like that, it would be perfectly fine. You would understand some of the things I'm talking about. But the average, 90-year-old grandmother in the middle of Kansas doesn't want to have to worry about keeping her computer on all the time. And then worry about when Windows updates, although that jokingly I do have some that do that, but only after they've become aware that they have to just make sure they manage it a little bit more than just plainly clicking a button and then opening their wallet once a week to, just inspect their returns.
Let me give you a little more of my interpretation based on my personal history and background of what he just said. So the first wallet that I ever tried probably was an Ethereum wallet, and it was called Parity. And when I installed the wallet on my computer, I remember it seemed like an hour or two to get it up and running, because what it had to do was go download the whole Ethereum blockchain to my personal laptop or computer, whatever kind of computer I was running. And that's not an instant process, right? So it ran a while, and then I'm like, seriously, now to be able to send and receive Ethereum, I have to keep up to date with this blockchain. And that's kind of what he's saying here is the DIVI wallet is still that way. Whereas other wallets such as Exodus and maybe Atomic, you don't have to have any blockchain on your computer. They just do what's called API calls, and they talk to some other computer that does have the blockchain. And to me, those in general are better. And so just what I kind of remember, and I should know more about this, but I believe DIVI is working on a mobile app for DIVI, a mobile wallet. And of course, for that, you should not need to have the whole blockchain on your phone, of course. So now whether they're going to have a port of that software for Windows or other tools, I don't know. So that's something I need to research in the future. I personally run the DIVI wallet, and I keep it up on my laptop most of the time. So what he was talking about is Windows has updates that will come like on Tuesdays and Thursdays almost every week. And it will often ask you, do you want to reboot your computer now? Or you can say, no, I want to do it at midnight tonight. Well, the point is, when you're running the DIVI wallet, you have to do a soft shutdown. What that means is you click on it and you click whatever the button says, properly exit or shut down the service. I call it a Windows service, but they call it like the Unix term, a daemon or a daemon. It's something that's running on your computer all day long. So that means your computer does have to be connected to the internet. And what he was saying there, whether you're using Wi-Fi, I use a direct plug-in just because I'm a geek and I like things faster. But you need to keep it up and running on your computer, and it does take a little bit of resources of your computer to do that. Now, I am affiliated. I'm starting a new business, by the way. It's going to be called BitcoinBuffalos.com, and I'm affiliated with a group of people who are, well, Bitcoin Ben, basically, and we're the founders group, and we're going to be doing consulting, and like in the future, maybe you'll be able to get me on the phone, and I might be able to help you with whatever your issue is or something like that, or just tell you more about cryptos. But one of the things we're going to have when we get that up and rolling is Bitcoin Ben and his partner are working on a special crypto-only laptop, basically. And it probably has the Windows updates turned off, for example. And that's something you can do too. But then you don't, if it's a personal computer you use every day, you generally like those updates because They can do good things for you as well, but they can do bad things for your wallet, in other words. And so then if your wallet doesn't get shut down properly, if your Divi wallet doesn't get shut down properly, your computer boots, well, your wallet may not automatically restart. So, and then when you do restart it, it may be a little bit wacky or out of sync. And so there's a special buttons in there you have to click that say resync to the blockchain or whatever it's called. And it will go down, I believe it goes in, it has a quick mode, and it will download some kind of a zip file it's all hidden to you. It's all done behind the scenes. But like in maybe 4 to 7 minutes, it will download the zip file, put it on your computer, unzip it, and then do a resync so that you're caught up. And so if you're doing staking, that's required. Now, again, I run a master mode, and I don't have to keep my wallet up because I basically pay through PayPal like $10 a month, and they host the master node for me in the cloud. So the cloud is always there. Now, he said it wasn't totally passive. Sometimes you may have to check your master nodes, or sometimes you'll have to maybe do some weird things to them, but that's pretty rare. It doesn't usually take a lot, but anyway, should probably have some monitoring set up on that as well. So then I came back to him and asked a few more sets of questions here. I said, I really appreciate you explaining with your voice messages. Okay, it's apparently trickier than I thought. It may not be trickier, but it's trickier than I thought. I assume everything you just said is based on using staking in the Divi wallet. And based on what you said, if I understand, if the wallet or the internet disconnects, you must not get your staking rewards. I remember reading you could stake on WhatsApp. Then when I checked YouTube today, I saw something called My Container, which I call it a custodial service. They'll keep your Divi staked for you. Said then I watched one called Staking on WhatsApp. Wouldn't WhatsApp be the way to go? And then he has a pretty good answer for that.
You send your Divi off to somewhere. It's never a method I would ever suggest. I don't care who it is, what reason. I'm strongly a solo staker, and the reason why is philosophy. I believe in sovereignty, I believe in autonomy, and I believe in freedom wholeheartedly. And so you're right, there are custodial situations that are considered ease of use, but we give up our freedoms when we give up those ease of use situations. We also don't necessarily strengthen the network more. It actually weakens the network when we pool to one major source. It's much better to have it spread out, we would say decentralized and distributed across the world. That provides a much, much stronger economic and technological structure for the network, right? So these are geeky things. Now, to answer, to just not to highlight, but to bring out, staking isn't trickier. It's just a little bit more work, right? And the fact is that when you're staking, just like a masternode, you're chosen for work. And so what ends up happening is if you're not online, you don't have the opportunity to be chosen for work. There's a fairness protocol that's running. That fairness protocol checks who's available, and then you could say elects one person to, or we would say a staker, to validate and verify blocks. They also require that staker prove that they're beneficial with the coins they have available while they're facilitating this validation, verification, and then submitting that block. For doing so, they then use their coins, and then their coins are then you could say they're used in the transaction, and they're returned with the increase of that 418 Divi. So they actually mint 1150 Divi. A masternode gets 495 Divi. The staker gets 418 Divi. The rest goes to the charities and the treasuries and the different allotments in the treasury process. So that was a whole lot of geeky stuff. But the point is that if you're not online as a staker, you didn't lose stakes. You weren't at work. So if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. And so in staking, you have to be online to be regularly available, consistently, to be chosen for that time that you would be available to earn. So the masternodes will choose you for that, and it's based upon your weight in coins. It's based upon things like how hard it is to submit and validate and verify, and mine is the right term, but we call it minting the blocks. And all of those things are compared. So the economics are compared along with what your personal economics are in coins with the entire network. So you could say it's probabilistic, but it isn't random entirely. It is weighted, So you want to be available when your time is up. Otherwise, you didn't lose anything. You weren't there at work to begin with.
Oh, I have even more questions, but let's go on here. Someone else chimed in here. He says, speaking of custodial solutions, BitMax offers staking at 12%, and he says that 20% didn't last very long. So apparently BitMax will stake for you. They'll take their 26%, and then they'll give you 12, and then they'll pocket the other 14 or something like that. And like he said here, well, everyone has to cover their costs. So they're doing a favor for you by not having you deal with these technicalities, but then they take a big chunk of the rewards too. Okay, so I'm starting to get a handle on it. When you type in /staking and the number in the Divi support, what does that actually do? So down here at the bottom, you could type this in, this command, and I can show you, well, just a second. I'll show you what it did. At the time I asked him this, it hadn't come back yet. So it actually takes a few minutes to respond, and I didn't realize it was so slow here. So this is the Divi support group. Okay, so right here I typed in staking, and you can type in whatever number you want. And in theory, it's the amount that you're thinking about staking. It says here, theoretical, mathematical, estimated calculations, that's a bunch of words, right, based upon a staking wallet running 24 hours a day and all available coins on the network staking at the same time. Then it predicts what your rewards will be here. It actually gives you a dollar amount. So here they're saying it's only 12.97. Oh, X it says, not, sorry, yeah, that's not percent, that's X. Wow. So I don't know if I'm reading this correctly or not, but it sounds like if you stake for 3 months, you could turn, well, no, I don't know why they call that X. Sorry, I'm gonna have to think about this more and tell you later. How did they take my number 25,916 and get 1390 out of that? If we do the math on that, divided by 25,916, that's about 5.1%. I have no idea what this 3.24x means. These numbers will not be exact. Wallets cannot receive a fractional reward. Anyway, you can read all that later if you want. Now I'm going to go back to the original post we were in. Oh, and this guy also kind of replied to my question as well. I don't even think I noticed his reply when I was here before. He says, I share the philosophies he just described in the voice message. That said, I do think staking can be for non-techies too. Essentially, that is the DNA of this project. Our core belief is that it can be for non-techies, and our mission is to close the gap between what we encounter today and an imagined and continually improved, easier way. All of us here started without knowing anything about staking, master nodes, or even cryptocurrency for that matter. I would encourage you to attempt staking as well as master nodes if you have that level of investment, because you will learn more about what is going on behind the scenes. We'll be glad to answer your questions and so on. And then here is where the voice replied back to me.
A total available spendable coins. So how does it do that? Well, master nodes are known, and master nodes are broadcast, and their tiers are broadcast. So you can take a look at the quantity and total, and then calculate how many coins are in all those master nodes. And then the engine itself, Divi's engine, keeps track of the total economics, meaning the total supply of coins. So you subtract out the supply of coins, and then you kind of get the idea of what would be the spendable amount. And then it compares your amount, the weight of what you would have, against the weight that is the entire amount of coins on the network. Does some calculations based upon how many blocks there are in a day. Starts doing math to find out what is probabilistic that you would receive a reward per day. And then what it does is it makes it more realistic, since those calculations are really based upon a year. It breaks them down no less than 90 days. So you get a pretty good idea. It's a conservative idea if you were running what would be, I would say, if you were consistently running a conservative amount.
Okay, I thought I was almost done, but actually another guy came in and asked a question about staking as well. So I'm going to play one or two more responses that the voice gave here, because I think this is information that you need to know if you chose to watch this video.
Well, I mean, it's about self-education too. I'm not one to sit here and overly encourage a person to learn about a Raspberry Pi and those kinds of things. I am about learning about those things, but I wouldn't say that, yes, that's what you should do. What I would encourage people to do, especially if you have one computer household, is when the time comes, get a previously owned machine that is dedicated specifically for that, so your one computer household with your kids can stay your one computer for you and your kids, and then you can have an inexpensive, even previously owned machine, if you set it up right, to actually be your workhorse that you would oversee and make sure you do a little bit of helicopter parenting, that is working for you. Make your coins work for you. You have to definitely put some skin in the game personally with some time. But if you self-educate, it is so, so, so rewarding. And by the way, this is the way Satoshi originally created it. He wanted the average person to be able to run their average computer, doing all this work on the network. It's what happened afterwards that he was so angry about, that the ASICs and these mining and this whole process, that I won't even mention the person's name who did it because he's early on, but he's very important, but it just makes me frustrated. The reason why you have such expensive machines and all these kinds of things, the reason why there's no participation, the reason why that Bitcoin becomes so centralized and everybody complains about it being in these servers and these server centers and all of this, is because the process is broken. It's not philosophically the way Satoshi designed it. DIVI isn't the only one, but DIVI is the only one that is focused on the philosophy of making crypto easy. That's the driving, guiding compass for every drip and every drop of code that comes out. Whether it's the engine itself, the stuff that's totally geeky we don't even get a chance to see, or whether it is every iteration of the wallet trying to round the edges or create a new process to make it so much easier. We want and need, and you do too, participation on the network. Everybody should be involved. Everybody will get rewarded. Everybody participates. Everybody is DIVI. It's not the coins. It's people like you and me.
So I actually thanked him and bowed out above here, but he goes on giving some other good answers down here to this other guy. And I mean, where do you get support like this? Like I said, there's two forums here, DIVI Official and DIVI Support. They're always so good at being able to help you, any problem that you have. I'm sure they get the same question asked 1,000 times a day, and they're always so polite and nice and pretty rapid at getting to you too. It just depends how many people are in this group at the same time. But I mean, the time that he took to give me those voice messages, I'm just so appreciative of that. So it's an amazing team, and I think these people some of them are volunteers here working in this forum. So again, DIVI is just such an impressive system. So we have another question from Paul. He says, could you elaborate on the staking protocol? How are things weighted? For example, if your wallet spends more time online, is a higher priority awarded to you. If you are staking more tokens than others, do you get a preference? If you have been awarded a staking reward, does that drop your immediate value and the likelihood of staking again? If so, what is the timeout?
So you can think about your total amount of coins is how you're weighted. So you're paid based upon the fairness of how much skin you have on the game. It has a little bit of bearing on the time you've been up on the first, we would say, 10,080 blocks. So you just figure roughly a week. During that first week of receiving, let's say you had 10,000 DIVI. If on Sunday morning you had 10,000 DIVI, and you first receive it and you start staking right after it's spendable, which is 6 confirmations, you have a weight which is divided up by 10,000, right? So if you had 10,000 DIVI divided up by roughly, we'll just round it to 10,000, you have like a weight of 1 every single minute. It's increasing, and then it goes to 2 and then 3 and then 4, so you can kind of figure it on a percentage, right? So by the end of a week, you're staking at your full weight. And that full weight, of course, was 10,000. You're fractional up until that waiting period is over. That's called coin age. You need to have coins that are aged like a fine wine, right? You want it in the barrel. Your coins need to be in the barrel or in that receipt for at least roughly 1 week. It's pretty close to 1 week. After that, they are at their full weight, and that weight is then how you're chosen, and everybody's weight is reviewed, right, during each block. You're randomly chosen, and the weight that is chosen is generally based upon the difficulty on the network. That's a lot of technical stuff to get into right here. It's way too much to start educating people on, but yes, it is the weight of your coins compared to the weight of the network, and the master nodes are what chooses you based upon that, and therefore it's fair for everyone. So fair you can calculate it out. You can look at the numbers and you can almost perfectly, it's averaged, but almost perfectly just calculate out how much you can get over a year. And then again, I do a division no less than 90 days. Anything less than 90 days, if you have anything less than 1 million staking, it will be random to the point, even though it's weighted, your brain, it just doesn't work. It'll frustrate the tar out of you. So I use a 90-day average, and that helps me get to as small of a fractional division as I think I'm comfortable with. It's subjective based upon what my viewpoints are. So yeah, it's the weight of the network compared to your weight of the coins.
Okay, that pretty much sums up what I learned and got today from this forum. Again, appreciate those guys for all the information they provide. And definitely going to have to do a part 2 of this video where I actually go and stake some of my DIVI in my wallet. I think that would be interesting for me to learn it for myself, and I'm sure there are many other people out there that want to learn the same thing. So this has been Neil with neilsvideos.com and also now bitcoinbuffaloes.com. And I'll see you on the next video.